Hello and welcome to Felt and Boodle. Today we're going to be making our Hare, which is our new needle felting kit that we've done in collaboration with Romney Marsh Wools. Now everything in the kit is put together by ourselves. All of the wool is 100% British and from Romney sheep from Romney Marsh Wools. All is hand dyed by ourselves as well, and all designs are made by us. So let's start with unboxing it. So inside you will have your instruction booklet, a piece of parchment, a 36 gauge, a 40 gauge and a reverse needle. In here you've got your horsehair and your sewing needle, your eco felting pad, pipe cleaners, wire, needle holder, our gorgeous core wool, our brown blend, our grey blend, our blush and our black. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is fill up our eco pads. All you need is some dry rice, pour it into the pad. You want to fill it to about halfway. This will give it a nice bit of movement once you close it up. So pour the drawstring nice and tight, knot it, and then you're ready to go. Okay, so there's a couple of extra bits that you're going to need for this kit. You're going to need a pair of pliers, a pair of scissors, a tape measure, and a pair of straighteners or an iron, it doesn't matter which. So to start off with, we're going to take our wire, straighten it out, and we're going to cut a 28 centimetre piece. So with your tape measure, measure out your 28, which is there, cut it with your pliers. Next we're going to cut a 40 centimetre. This will be for your arms. 40. And then lastly, we're going to cut a 48 for the legs. So it should be roughly that, 48, and it's slightly over. There we go. Right, so we're going to take our smallest piece first, put the other ones aside, take a pipe cleaner, and you're just going to cover the wire with your pipe cleaner. This will help the wool adhere to the wire. So it doesn't have to be overly neat. So just wrap it around. So it looks like that. Now we're going to take a bit of our core wool. You're going to take just a sliver of core wool and very tightly you're going to wrap the core wool around the body. Just so it covers all of the wire. Now you're going to felt this into place Be really careful not to hit the wire. If it starts coming loose, just turn it again. Now this process is going to take you a little while. You've got to make sure that there's no air bubbles stuck between your wool and your wire underneath. So just keep felting it until it's firm but still got a nice bounce in it. Okay, so once you've got that about 1 centimetre thick, you want to bend it in the shape that's in your booklet. It doesn't need to be precise, just gives you an idea of the shape that you're going for. Okay. There you go, so it looks a little bit like a seahorse. And what you're going to do is just keep adding wool. Just keep wrapping it round, felting it into place. And just keep building it up until you fit this template here. This is the back template. So this is how wide you're going to want him. So by the time you're finished, he should look a little bit like this. It doesn't matter if it's slightly out or it's slightly longer or slightly fatter. It really doesn't matter. No one's going to get it exactly the same as everybody else is. And I think that's one lovely thing about needle felting is everyone's got their own style. So as you can see from the one that I've done, I haven't built up his neck completely yet. So I'm going to work on that when I work on shaping the head. So the head with a hair can be really, really tricky. Just try to keep it as simple as you can. We're going to be adding a lot of detail later with some flat felting. So don't worry too much if it doesn't look anything like a hair yet. Okay, so that's the body. Now we're going to move on to a different part. Okay, so next we're going to be making the front legs. So you're going to need your 40 centimetre wire and 2 pipe cleaners. So the same as that we done with the body, we're going to wrap the pipe cleaner around the wire. Now for this one, I tend to put the pipe cleaner a bit closer together so there's not as much wire showing through, only because the legs are quite thin, so the possibility of hitting that wire is quite high. So it just gives a little bit more protection. There we go. If you've got any excess, just use your pliers to cut it off like that. Okay, so now all your wires covered. Now we want to leave a gap in the middle of about 5 centimetres that we're not going to actually put any wool round. So I'd say roughly about that much. We're going to take some more of our core wool. Now this time you do want to take a much smaller sliver and use your 36 gauge needle for this because your 40 gauge will break if you hit the wire in the centre. So start wrapping it really tightly around one end. Very gently felt it into place. And then you can carry on wrapping the rest. Okay, felt the ends just to secure it. Now we're going to be working on this template here. So once again, it doesn't matter if yours ends up a little bit fatter or a little bit thinner, really doesn't make any difference. The most important thing for this is to make sure you've got those lovely curls for the toes and a flat base, because our hair is going to be sitting with his feet flat on the floor, so they need to be nice and flat. Okay, and just carry on felting, adding wool until you feel the template. Okay, so once you've got your paw, so you can see in that it's got each of the toes and that we've made this portion of it flat. Now you're going to need to repeat this for the other side. Okay, so once you've completed your foot, don't worry about it having too much detail at the moment because we're going to add all of that as soon as we start adding colour. So just make sure he's got his 3 toes and the base here is flat. And then get started on the other side and do a matching one. Okay, so once you've finished your feet, set them aside and we're going to take our brown blend and our grey blend. Now you want to leave a small portion of the brown. It only needs to be around 1 gram. And about the same for the grey. And then what we're going to do is we're going to blend these 2 colours together. Now it's up to you. You can do different ratios than what's in the book. So if you wanted maybe his back to be greyer, do a more grey to brown ratio, or you can just blend it all together to get the mix that we use. So if you've got hand carders, you can use hand carders. If not, there's a really simple way of doing it. I break it down slightly so it's easier in my hands, and then holding it between your fingers and the palm of your hand, you're going to pull it apart. Lay it back on top of each other and do the same. Now you're going to carry on doing this until it's all blended together. This can take a little while to do, but it's really important to get that blend nice. So just keep going and keep going. So once you've got a nice blend like that, then you're ready to go. So I'm going to go and do the rest of this, and we'll be back to cover our feet next. Okay, so now it's time to cover our feet. We're going to change our needle over to a 40 gauge needle, and using some of the blend that we've just made, we're going to cover the leg and the foot completely. Now remember, when you put in the layer on, that you've got to keep the foot pad flat. Okay, so once you've finished colouring it in, take your 36 gauge needle and we're just going to define those toes again. Okay, so once you've defined your toes, you're going to take some of your black wool. You only need tiny bits of this. So just a small sliver, like that. And we're just going to roll it. There we go. So we'll probably get 2 out of that. So I'm just going to snap that in half. Okay. Now in those indentations that you've just made, you're going to felt the black into it. And this will give your toes a nice bit of definition. And then bring the black to the flat side, the underneath. There you go. And then do it again for the other toe. So there is your finished foot. You're just going to repeat that process on the other. Okay, so once you finish colouring in your front legs, all you need to do is bring them together. Bend the wire slightly so we make a loop. We're going to set these aside and we're going to work on our back legs now. So our last piece of wire, once again we're going to wrap it in pipe cleaners. Like that, last one. Okay, so now we're done with that, we're going to take a sliver of wool and we're going to wrap nice and tight round all of the wire. So like we did with the front legs, we're going to leave 5 centimetres here that's not going to be covered in wool, okay? Okay, and then we're going to felt it into place. Don't forget to change your needle over to your 36 gauge for this. Okay, so now that you've covered your wire, you're going to take your template and you're going to bend your wire to fit okay. So that looks about right. Okay, so now that you've covered your wire, we're going to trace the template okay. So we've got kind of like a zigzag. Now we get this void here is going to actually be solid. So if you take a sliver of wool, put it between the wire, roll this one up so it fills that void, and then wrap the other end of the sliver around and then felt into place. Now whilst you're felting the legs, there's a possibility that you're going to misshape them slightly just whilst you're felting. So always refer back to your template and just keep building it up until it fits that template. Okay, so once you've got your shape for your back foot, we're going to start to colour just the foot and the first portion of the leg. We're not going to bother with the thigh just yet. So we're taking our grey-brown blend and we're just going to cover the whole foot. Remember, keeping this side nice and flat. Okay, so once you've finished colouring in the leg and the foot, you're going to make a replica on the other end of the wire. So match it up like that, and then once again you're just going to colour the foot and the lower leg. Okay, so now that you've got your back toes, we're going to set our legs aside and we're going to start work on the tail. Okay, so to start on our tail, we need to get our parchment paper. We're going to lay it on top of our felting pad. Now you only need a tiny bit of core wool for this. The template is in the book, so you can use that as a guide. You're just going to take a small sliver, you're going to wrap it and squash it down. So you've got like a flat square. Using your 48 gauge needle, you're going to very gently start felting it. Now you don't want to go through to the pad with this. The parchment paper will help it to not stick, and it also gives you a good indication of when you're going too deep. So to do the edges, just fold over the edge. This will help shape it. Do lift it up and move it around, because where it's so thin it will stick eventually, but the parchment paper definitely helps. Now you're going to leave one end unfelted so you can attach it to your hair. So I'm going to choose this side, and I'm just going to leave that as it is and just work on this portion and getting this the right shape. So just fold in the edges in the shape that you want it. It doesn't have to match the template completely. It's more of a guide. If you want to do a bigger tail, you can. If you want to do a smaller one or a fluffier one, it's entirely up to you. I think mine is going to be roughly right. Okay. So now you're going to cover one side of it in your blend and the edging. So the edging just comes slightly over to the other side. You've got to be careful not to put your needle too far in for this, because where the felt is so slim, the blend will come through the other side, which obviously we don't want. So take a bit of your blend. So you don't want to hear that paper really now. Okay, so once you've finished colouring in one side of your tail and you've done the edge around there, you're going to take some of your white wool. Now you don't want to felt this down completely because you want it to have a fluffy look about it. So all I do is roll it into a ball like so and just gently felt it into place. Can you see? I'm just keeping it quite fluffy. And then that's your tail done. And now we're going to set that aside and we're going to work on the ears. Okay, so to start on our tail, we need to get our parchment paper. We're going to lay it on top of our felting pad. Now you only need a tiny bit of core wool for this. The template is in the book. So you can use that as a guide. You're just going to take a small sliver, you're going to wrap it and squash it down. So you've got like a flat square. Using your 48 gauge needle, you're going to very gently start felting it. Now you don't want to go through to the pad with this. The parchment paper will help it to not stick, and it also gives you a good indication of when you're going too deep. So to do the edges, just fold over the edge. This will help shape it. Do lift it up and move it around because where it's so thin, it will stick eventually, but the parchment paper definitely helps. Now you're going to leave one end unfelted so you can attach it to your hair. So I'm going to choose this side and I'm just going to leave that as it is and just work on this portion and getting this the right shape. So just fold in the edges in the shape that you want it. It doesn't have to match the template completely. It's more of a guide. If you want to do a bigger tail, you can. If you want to do a smaller one or a fluffier one, it's entirely up to you. I think mine is going to be roughly right. Okay. So now you're going to cover one side of it in your blend and the edging. So the edging just comes slightly over to the other side. You've got to be careful not to put your needle too far in for this because where the felt is so slim, the blend will come through the other side, which obviously we don't want. So take a bit of your blend. So you don't want to hear that paper really now. You want to get just round the edge. Okay, so once you've finished colouring one side, we're going to take some of our white wool and we're going to do the same as we did with the tail. We're not going to felt it down really hard and flat. And let some of the finer bits of the wool go over the line of the brown. It just gives it a more natural look. Okay, so now you're going to add a little bit of your blush just to the base. And so you want to do a heavier portion lower down, and then you want to feather it out going towards the centre of the ear. Okay, so now that you've done that stage, we're now going to iron them. Okay, so now we're going to iron our ears. Depending on what you've got, I do find hair straighteners are the easiest and best to use because you can really shape the ears with these. So you need it on quite a high setting, and then just move your way up. Now you've got to be careful not to burn it because the natural wool will go yellow if you burn it. So okay, so there we are. And now you can shape it as well just by pulling it like you would use the hair straighteners to curl your hair naturally. There we go. Okay, set that ear aside and we'll start on the second one. Okay, so now your ears are done. We're going to set them aside and we're going to start on the head. Okay, so now we're going to start building up our hare's face and head. Now my neck's quite slim, so I'm going to be adding a little bit to that as well. Now the hare's head, they tend to be quite square on top, so you want to get quite a nice sort of rectangular angle here where it goes down into the snout afterwards. Okay, so we'll just build it up together and see how we get on. Just move your wool around to where you need it to build up. It's like, I want to build up the neck, but I don't want to build up the back here. So all I'm going to do is pull the wool up and over where his eye would be, because that's the bit that I really want to build up. Now don't felt this too hard because we're going to try to put on a little bit of detail, so you don't want it too hard that you're then having to add wool to it to then make that detail. If I just show you my grey hair, which is the same style hair that you're going to be doing in this kit, so you can see that he's got quite a straight snout here and then his forehead goes up. Same as with the front view, it's quite slim here and then it comes out at the back. Okay. Okay, so I've started to build up his head. What I'm going to do now is add the indentations for where his eyes are going to go. So this will give us a bit more of an understanding of if we've got the shape right. So their eyes sit quite high up. So all you need to do is start felting that one area. Keep checking, make sure that you've got it in the right place. Now you want this indentation to be quite big because we've got an eyeball to go in there and then we've got the eyelids as well. So I'd say probably around 1 centimetre wide for this. Okay, so there's the indentation on one side. Now just make sure that you line it up perfectly with the other side and do the other eye. Keep going back and checking just to make sure that it's in the same place. If you do it wrong and it's not equal, fill it with some of the white wool and then just start again. Okay, so I've got both of his indentations for his eyes in now. And one thing that I've noticed with mine is the top of the head here isn't quite wide enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some more of our white wool to that. I tend to get a sliver and then I wrap it in my fingers like that and then pull it off. Gives you kind of like a nice square base to work with. So I'm going to felt that into place. So I'm trying to square up this portion of it. So I'm going to tuck it under and then felt. Now I think this is the trickiest part of the hair, is getting the head shape right. It's worth spending your time, maybe have a look on Google at some hair pictures if it makes it a little bit easier for you. So now I'm just applying the wool around the top of the eye. This will widen the top of the head the same on the other side. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. And now we're going to move on to his eyeballs. Right, so for the eyeball, we're going to take a very thin sliver of our white wool. Now we're going to tie a knot in the centre, like so, nice and tight. And then we're going to fold this portion over, and then with our non-needle hand, we're going to hold the unfelted section there. And we're going to gently felt it into a ball. Be careful of your fingers on this bit because it's a little bit tricky. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it round once. So I've still got hold of the bit at the bottom. I'm going to pinch it and then keep felting. You want to felt this quite hard so it keeps its shape. Right, so once you've got your eyeball, just place it in, make sure that you've got the right size. If it's too small, then wrap it again and then felt. If it's too big, just try felting it a little bit harder to sort of bring the sides down. Now, once you've got the rest of the facial features on, the eye is going to appear smaller. So I would recommend if you think, oh, I think it might be a little bit too small, then make it slightly bigger, because most of it's going to be hidden anyway. So I'm actually going to make mine slightly bigger. So I'm just going to wrap, pinch, and felt. Okay, so there you have it. Right, so now we're going to colour our eyeball. So I've got some black wool here and I'm going to colour all of it in black. Okay, so once you've done that, you're going to take a very small amount of your brown that you left aside and you're going to roll it into a ball in your hands. Okay, and we're going to lay it flat in the centre of the eye. Now it's important to keep the shape of this so it's a nice circle. So just go around the edges. Okay. So there you go, there's the brown. Now we're going to add a small circle of black. We're going to do the same as we've done with the brown. We take a tiny bit and we roll it in our hands. I like putting mine on the end of my needle because it's so tiny. And then we're going to place it in the centre. And then once again, felt round the edges, making sure to keep it nice and circular. There we go. And last finishing touch, we're going to take a very, very small amount of our white wool and we're going to roll it into a ball. Put it on the end of your needle, like so. And then at the top right hand corner, we're going to felt it in. There we go. And there is your eye. So we need to make 2 of these. So exactly the same process for the second one. Make sure you use the same amount of white wool so they end up the same size. Okay, so now we have both of our eyeballs. You can see those? Right, so now we're going to put them onto our hair. So we're going to use the unfelted wall that we had at the back, and we're just going to felt it in. Now, if you've got any excess wool that wouldn't go in, you can just cut it off. There we go. So it's going to look a little bit bulbous at the moment, but once we've got everything else on, that will look absolutely fine. So make sure that you've got your white flecks pointing up and in the same position. And then we're just going to plonk it in. I'm going to cut off some of the excess. Right, so there we go. That's his eyes in, and next we're going to be working on his eyelids. Okay, so you're going to need your second piece of parchment. You're going to lay that on top of our felting mat. So it's the same way that we done the tail and the ears. And we're going to want to make a square like that, and then felt it down. Keep going until it's quite dense. Remember, move it around. Bring in the edges so you've got a nice straight edge. Okay, so once you've finished felting your square, we're going to cut it into 4 equal portions. There we go. Okay, so now what we want to do is make our eyelids. So we're going to take one of the sides that we've felted, not one of the sides that we've cut, and we're going to align it with the eye to there, gently felt into place, and then we're going to pull it so it comes over to the other side and felt that into place. Okay, so we've got that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add another one to the bottom of the eye. So we're going to tuck it in there and bring it up. So you want to make a slight void on the inside. Okay, so that's what you're going to be looking at once you've just tacked it into place. Now we want to go around the eye socket. This will pull the eyelid down slightly and give it some shape. There we go. Now we're going to felt in the rest of the wall. So you're going to want your 40 gauge needle for this. Okay, so now that we've done the eyes, we are going to felt on the ears. So, know roughly whereabouts you're going to have them. We're going to use the unfelted side to attach, so we're just going to lay it on and felt it into place. Do this really gently at first, just to make sure that you're happy with the positioning. I'm happy with that. Okay, so once we've tacked them on, what we want to do is squeeze these ends in like so, and that's how we're going to felt the lower portion on. So just from the side. So pinch together and felt. Okay, so there you have your ears. Okay, so now we're going to attach his back legs. So we're going to put the wire around the back of him. Now we want the feet and the thigh to sit slightly lower than the body. So once you've got the right positioning for it, just tack it very gently into place. And do the same with the other one. Now, depending on how big you've done his body, like me, you might end up with a little bit of wire that's a bit of excess. So all I do is I just twist it, and then we're just going to felt over the top of that. Okay, so once you're happy with the positioning, we're going to then cover this back portion. Push it in, and then we're going to take some felt and we're just going to place it over the top. Be careful of the wires. You don't want to go breaking your needle. Okay, so there is his back legs. Now he's going to sit forward slightly like this. So what we need to do is round this section off and make these haunches slightly bigger, because at the moment they're a little bit too small. So all we're going to do is put some wool over the top of the legs and felt into place. This will help secure the fire onto the hair and also help to sort of build it up and also give it a softness, so there's not a very defined line between the body and the legs. Okay, I'm going to do the same with the other side. Lay it over the top. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is this portion I'm going to roll and place it on top of the fire. Okay, so now it's time to attach the front legs. So we're going to want his front feet to be sitting on the floor. So pick your positioning. Normally goes sort of above the shoulder, where the shoulders would be. Now once you've got that in position, you're going to do exactly the same as you've done with the legs. You're just going to place a bit of wool over the top and felt to secure. Okay, so once you've secured them, if you think that you need a little bit more to bring the shoulders out, then just add a little sliver on both sides. I'm going to do that on mine because I feel that it just needs, once again, I'm going to wrap it in my finger, pull it off, and then attach it. And there we go, it just gives him a little bit more shape. So we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. Wrap it in my finger, take it off. Okay, so now everything is attached apart from the tail. So we're going to take the tail, you're going to want to put the white side facing the body in between the back of the legs. Felt to secure. There we go. So that's all of the pieces attached now. All that's left is to put a thin layer of the brown and grey blend and cover his whole body. Okay, so now that we've finished colouring him in, I've added some white to his chest and some pink to his belly. I've also done a Y on the front of his face for his nose. Now we're going to be doing his fur. So we're going to take our reverse needle, and you only need to put a tip of this in, depending on how much white you want to pull through. So on the chest, for instance, we can go a little bit deeper and pull more of that white in, but everywhere else, you're not going to want too much of it. But it's a great way of being able to change the colours depending on what portion of the body you're working on. So I'm going to start on his back, and you're just going to put the tip in and you're going to pull. Now you want to do this all over. The only places that you're not going to be doing this is the feet, both feet, the ears and the tail. The rest of it, do with the needle. Okay, so you're all finished. Well done, guys, and please do share your finished pictures with us over on our social media pages. Thank you.